So to answer your question earlier, something the size of 3 feet by 3 feet cubed will run a Western society house, like a 3,500 square foot house with everything. You could run an arc welder, you can have a pool, you can have air conditioning, whatever you want. Real simple.
Well, that's what I want. That is what I want. And if you have one, I'm going to buy it, test it, have people come by and test it, feature it in the videos, talk about it. And I have another person who does an electric Preparedness magnetic motor. How can we get these devices? Because the time has come. It's past the time. We need them now. Truly need them.
Yep.
Grid's starting to fracture. We need that stuff. So how do I get my hands on one would be the question. And how readily available are you? You're really talking 3 to 6 week lead time on one of these for a home gen set? Or is it they're still under development and it's still prototype model? Because you're pretty confident that putting something on a car is already ready to go at the 100% level. So where do we sit with the home gen sets? Good afternoon, everyone. Tom Ross from Tesnic.com rejoins me. We're going to talk about the future, electricity, how electromagnetic currents might be flowing, how this will affect the human perception, things to look for in 2023 with hydrogen. And there's an enormous amount of movement now to new energy, and it's just starting to make it electric gravitics motors, things that are talked about the future, the hydrogen economy, non-deliverable power down lines that we understand, but at the source. And that goes with using the Earth's magnetic field or separating gases that are in our atmosphere. He was the one who sent me the link to Prometheus fuels using the anode and the cathode and a different electrical charge to reassemble atoms into either a liquid or take a gas, break it apart, use something called CO2, disassemble those atoms and then recombine them into like CH4, and then you could burn it again. Anything that they could do with the air, they could reconstitute it. And then almost you become an alchemical wizard by using electricity between two plates and different charges to reassemble matter itself. This is where we're going with the conversation tonight. So, Tom, thanks for joining me again.
Hey, David. Yeah, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate this opportunity, and your group has been so positive and so nice, and the interactions have been so amazing. We've had zero haters. People, they were all positive and forward moving, want to help and everything. So I must admit, somehow you're giving off all the right vibes.
I'm glad you said that. It is all about the vibration changing now with the sun stepping down in its 400-year cycle. But what I'm finding, in addition to people behaving differently because they're perceiving reality different, that's something in a subset to talk about. But I'm finding that like-minded people and like-minded communities, individuals, thought processes are seemingly binding themselves together. People are coming out of the woodwork and they seem like perfect fits. And it does seem that people are coagulating along energetic lines. Maybe it's a survival mechanism from millions of years to bring us together, those of like minds, because there won't be as much infighting in a community, for example, to grow food or do tasks or be able to share expertise. It is all about the vibration right now, the change. So you're already seeing there's an enormous amount of things that are disrupting what had been built out over the last 100, 150 years. So the old way of doing things, of bringing something to your home from a super, super far distance, that's not going to work anymore. And it doesn't matter whether it's a ship from China bringing goods over here, or if it's oil not coming from a pipeline, or if it's the electricity coming to your home. In addition to us thinking about where on this planet is a safe place to be now. Where are areas in the world where people are experimenting, thinking about new power devices, whether it's the electric gravitics, hydrogen economy, because the energy and the food are intertwined, the fertilizer and the energy are intertwined. I want to hit the escape button and get out somewhere. I'm tired of it.
I'm coming to you live from Buenos Aires, good air, Costa Rica, in the shade of Chiripo, from the indigenous word Chiripo to eternal waters, from a hot springs farm on an indigenous reserve where it's temperate all year round. No sulfur in the hot springs, no taxes, there's no building permits. It's a little world onto its own on a dead-end road that backs onto the rainforest. Most biodiverse place on the planet. No planes, no boats, no infrastructure. We're off-grid. Solar, electric, hydrogen, and water-powered. A good combination. Luckily, in the mountain range as it bounces here, We've got 50 to 100 megabit through a data connection through 4G back here, but it only works on certain spots of the property within like a 5-foot radius. And that's because they have suspension bridges here that are actually steel cables, gain antennas, because current electricity, current water, the water flowing underneath it activates the wires, and the wires bring in the signal. This place is 9,000 hectares. That's like the footprint of Toronto proper in Canada.
So you're telling me that everybody needs to relax down by the river if you want to work online, because the only place you can get a signal is under the bridge next to the river in the rainforest.
But you're right, not being connected to the sewer, the electricity wires, and all of that, water pipes, those frequencies of people dealing with the situation in life right now, whether it's a text message or a video phone call or whatever it is, however they're expressing themselves in their field and their energy, the toroidal event, it's getting caught up in that, and then it's being amplified, and it goes through all that infrastructure. You feel it, it weighs you down. This is nirvana. This is heaven on earth. This is the way it's supposed to be. And getting a taste of this resets you with our hemp and hydrogen. If you want to change behavior, you have to ostracize existing behavior. You have to create a real example that people can see and touch and smell. And once they see that, it's not only plausible, it's something they gravitate towards and they change their behavior. Hydrogen's a pretty hot topic.
I've been traveling a lot too, and I used to come to the exact same types of places you're talking about. But then I would eventually have to go back to work and drop back in on an airplane, back into a busy place, or, something surrounded by wires, walking around the Himalaya for 3 months, then having to get on a plane and go back into like be at a job at a certain minute type of thing. Once you get out there outside the wire, if you will, and you start to get that, oh, I forgot, what month is it? That's where you want to be at. And being at that point is very, very special, because the world has wrapped us into its tentacles of needance, where, like I say, you can feel the heaven as every time I turn and open the mailbox, it's another thing to pay for. It's just getting a little ridiculous on the financial enslavement happening in the US here. It's ridiculous, because I only dropped back in after the COVID forced me back here. Prior to that, I was living overseas working. It was quite a bit different. So many bills, so just ridiculous price for everything, and if I could escape that, I would in 2 seconds. But for Americans, where are they really to go now, where you can, get out of this madness if you want to?
If you just go to hotspringsvalley.com, you'll be able to see something you just won't believe until you get here. I walk up my front door on this 9,000 hectares biological preserve with, I go to an avocado tree and I get an avocado, I get an orange, I get a banana, I get a mango, I get mangosteen, I get momenchinos. This place has its own honey, has its own cheese, its own yogurt. They have every type of livestock, every type of chicken, ducks, roosters, turkeys. This place is mind-blowing. Horses, every type of fruit and vegetable and things you've never seen before in your life. And it's all hodgepodge and crazy all over the place. It's basically looks like wherever the cow or the animal took a shit, they just dumped a seed in it and it grew.
Let me ask you something then. These are the very first places people are going to flee to when they need to exit the cities. Like, this Amish farm out near me, it's awesome that we have, everything that you consider with the same thing. Amish, all pure, no natural. I mean, everything is, chemical free. They build their own fertilizers. They build their own living soils and even if they skip fertilizer for 2-3 years, things would still grow to like super absurd sizes that's considered almost impossible.
Yep.
But the same thing is cities around here exit out, and they already know thousands, plural, of people are coming to the super remote countryside area, going down to their farm and farming area. So, I'm looking at the same thing. You have the exact same super special, amazing yield, bountiful crop and plenty. But when the cities empty out and people start crossing borders in cities like Panama City rolling up, what's going to happen? I'm curious myself, because I don't have the answer. And that's what scares me.
Well, I grew up in an area that was right next to a reservation, and there were a lot of Mennonites and Amish and Quakers. And the funny part is you come to Costa Rica and it has one of the highest concentrations of Amish and Quakers and Mennonites in the world, because they abolished their army in 1948. So there's no draft. So every time something happens in one of these other jurisdictions, they all move here. If you want something done here, they mill their own lumber. They have bamboo. They've got rocks. They've got clay. They've got sand. They've got gravel. 90% of what happens here is just from here. It's the best air, best food, best water on the planet. And what I love about this place is what it doesn't have. It's not covered in RF frequencies. Water that's structured, that's really good. But if you're anywhere else, that water would be destroyed very quickly simply because of the local infrastructure. Even just two cars passing each other create an electromagnetic field that make you get car sick. A lot of people find they don't get car sick if they're on a highway and there's no other cars. It's only when the other cars are going the other way. People start to learn about these fields, as you said. You can check out the place and you can come see hemp hydrogen cryptocurrency, and we have a variety of electric bikes here powered by hydrogen.
Painted that picture of all the electromagnetic fields on the traffic. Now imagine an LA highway at rush hour. Be creeping along at 5 miles an hour, but I'm wondering with that massive current on the other side and the other, or do you have to be moving much faster to get that effect?
Well, there's no such thing as road rage. All you do is look up carbon monoxide poisoning and what the effects are, and it'll show you exactly why people twig.
You know, I was putting it to the sun changing its frequency and the human perception in the mind being affected because the electromagnetic, hemispheres of the brain are also being affected, just like the Earth's magnetic field. But then wrap that all into the sun changes the magnetic field of the planet, which changes the electromagnetic field of the brain. The perception changes. And maybe that's why people can't handle what's changing and they lash out and they become angry. But you're just saying it's from carbon monoxide over percentage that people are rebreathing.
Use Firefox or, DuckDuckGo and just search on the internet right now, radiation poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning. It will scare the hell out of you. Like those old scary videos on YouTube you see of when, the Cold War and stuff like that, and the sirens would go off. Oh, get under your desk at your school and stick your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye, because that's going to help.
I want to watch the fireball.
Yeah, if you're going to go, right?
Get away from the window. No, I want to watch the fireball. If we're all going to die in a building like you just showed us where that thing shattered like the whole city, like what am I going to do under the desk? I want to watch the big fireball. No, you're not allowed to. Get under your desk. No, I don't want to.
Just searching on the internet and seeing what they've done to islands out in the oceans to people in the past and testing and how they still deny it is just, it's really depressing. So enough of that. But not enough of that, because think about the breath, how important it is, and breathing in the air or the lack thereof, or recirculating carbon dioxide within a mask that people are breathing it over and over all day long, versus being out in a forest where you're actually in that replenishment of the oxygen coming out of the photosynthesis of the leaves in the center of that. That's why people so happy in forest on farms. You're way outside. You might get a little diesel pollution while they're plowing the fields or something, but otherwise it's pretty clean, and you're vibrating and you're in the center of the center, especially if you're near the forest. You're getting a huge amount of new fresh that invigorates the brain. Why do you think they give people oxygen to get them to wake up? The opposite is take less oxygen into the body and then make them sleepy and slow. Again, why does everybody need to be sleepy and slow at this point? Is another question to ask. Taking away the breathing, the most important thing. Like, you just last mere minutes if you don't breathe. It's like the most important thing that we have as a human to keep us going. Water, forget it. Food, forget it. Breath. And we use biofuel made from the farm, and then we use the hydrogen in the combustion engine to be able to make it more efficient, because hydrogen and oxygen being injected into the system, what it does is it breaks down the molecules. You're not running on a hydrogen oxygen, it's a very small amount, because how they make fuel, diesel and gasoline, out of crude oil, bunker, C-grade type stuff, is they use hydrogen, because it breaks it down to be able to take out the impurities and to be able to raise the octane so that it burns easier. We're just doing that in the combustion chamber. So yeah, here we don't buy any fuel. And that maybe that's why they call it biofuel. We don't buy any fuel, and you add the hydrogen and oxygen to it so that it negates the whole thing. If you're out behind one of the vehicles on the farm here, it just smells like the fryer at McDonald's.
I want to talk about scaling here for the electrical issues. Like, let's say, how do I get a 50 kilowatt unit that's running on hydrogen, self-propelling, that you could put in the house? And what would you need to keep 50 kilowatts on the side of your house, literally? as
Well,
a standard unit. I understand putting it in vehicles, that sort of thing. That's one application. But as a power generation unit, still installed for a village or a couple of homes next to them. I mean, take me down that route for a second.
there's 4 different components to this, and it's going to be, the world's always mixed up and it's always going to be mixed, and everybody wants a silver bullet. You know, it's nice that you're this infrastructure thing and there's not going to be potholes, but if Billy Bob can't afford $500 to fill up his pickup truck, what does it matter? He can't drive down that road. So we're heading for $200 a barrel in the next year, whether you like it or not. And then you add carbon tax on top of that. People have no clue. This is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. We started off at $45, $50 a barrel 8 months ago. And in a year, it's 200. And then put the carbon tax on top of that. There's already places around the world that are $15 to $18 a gallon. As we speak today, the collapse of society is happening now, right now, as we speak.
Oh, wait a second. Let me rewind it before we go to the next one. Give me a timeline on that $200 per barrel oil. Are we talking January, midway through, or the end?
Go to oilprice.com and look at the Federal Reserve, and then also go take a look at the Treasury. And if you search these things, you will find out they're doing the exact same things that triggered in the 1930s the Depression and the First World War. It's identical. Every CEO of every major corporation, when the music stops, I don't want a chair.
Yeah, you notice there's been a lot of resignations, thousands, plural, of the highest level individuals. And I think year 2020, there were like 1,500 or 1,800 super high resignations but this year it's even higher. So what is going on? Why is everybody sort of quietly jumping off the ship here?
Yeah, little companies like Cargill, the largest privately held corporation in the world that provides you with your food.
You know, because there's everything's consolidated in just a very few small hands, like you talked about, Federal Reserve, going back to World War I, taking a look at the names, probably switched, and the countries are the same, the players are the same, the bond rates are going directly after 1928, 1930 bond crash that really caused the depression. Yeah. The same. It's all fitting. You're right. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle piece for a different century, but they just changed the color on the pieces.
Well, the Chinese real estate, the Chinese telling certain corporations they have to delist. And there's just so much of it. It's overwhelming. And right now you're floating on top of the water. The tsunami's coming, but all you see is the water moving out.
Now, speaking on top of the $200 barrel and plus the carbon tax, you're going to have the food that's going to follow lockstep with that. And it's not going to be a linear progression into that. It's going to hit that point where food is up 23% this last year, and that's from the FAO. So they're always keeping numbers low. It's much higher than that, but we'll go with the official. If it jumps to 50%, if we're at $70 barrel oil and we go to 200, that's a 3x. So obviously the fertilizer prices, the production of the food itself, the seeds, there's so many inputs into that's also involved with the price of oil. So that would triple. And you think your food's only going to stay at another 25% increase when every input into it is either doubling or tripling, but you just believe in your little fairy tale world that food will only rise 25% next year because the government said so. But all the inputs are rising 3x, but you're just expecting a 0.25 move. Oh, no, maybe not. Let's pull that back. What happened if food goes up 50% or 100% or 1.5x? That is kind of the end where people take to the streets. Doubling of food prices, and you're going to see it's not going to be about lockdown protests. It's going to be strictly about my family needs to be fed.
If the trucks don't come in, we can't afford the food and the infrastructure fails, and you don't have anything to eat. I'm at the restaurant at the edge of the universe in the VIP section to watch it all blow up. So I have a very different perspective. Here's where we are today. We just had a meeting with the team of the founder of the largest automotive research and development and parts manufacturer in the world. For us, he said, look, your website's ugly. You have a few white papers and stuff and so on, but why don't you guys go get $1.5 billion or something like that? And I said, because we're doing this really weird thing. We're not pushing a truck down a hill and filming that. We made a commercially viable product with no rare earth materials, no chipset issues, made in Ontario and Quebec, completely. Nothing comes from outside those 2 provinces. Exported to the world, commercially available, 3 to 6 weeks lead time. And a city came to us. A guy that literally was the junior for the fleet management for a city said to us 7 years ago, I'm putting this on my car. I showed my boss everything and so on, but fuel prices weren't going up. Things weren't going crazy like they are now. But now we're being pulled back into the market. 50 million road miles, certifications with Carbon California, insurance companies, warranties with Cummins and Detroit Diesel. So having success in business is a lot like being pregnant. Nobody asks how many times you actually got screwed to be able to get there.
Why is there not a news crew following this vehicle 24/7 as proof of concept to bring us through? If they're going to start, forcing carbon taxes down your throat and emissions this and climate lockdown that, why would they not have this on the front page of everything? We finally found the solution.
Really, in short, the Wright brothers, not the wrong brothers, did sustained flight. They were doing it in the United States for a year. The reporters from New York Times and everything so came it, but they said it wouldn't sell the advertising and it make them look foolish. So then they had moved over to France, and that's where they actually commercialized it and made things happen. So right now we're deploying on 100 vehicles, quite a few of them already on the vehicles and more going on the next month for an entire city in Canada. And it's the actual fleet manager that has had a unit for 7 years on his personal vehicle, bought a new vehicle, contacted us, I want to move it over. We went, by the way, we reduced the cost of it. The efficiencies are way up. And now with fuel prices going, he says, what do you got? So we showed him, and he's like, I want 100 right now, and put them on all the vehicles. So now he's putting it on. Then he informed the government. Then there's the federal government. And they have all these plans now for what they're calling transitional solutions. We have in 2 hours, we put a device on your vehicle with no modifications to the motor. Just needs electricity from the alternator. It comes on with the ignition. There's a little pipe that goes into where your air filter is. And the little computer figures that it has more oxygen and starts to see the temperature change and adjusts to it. And then you get amazing reduction in fuel, better emissions. So, and you get better performance. So it's a hydrogen converter replacing the catalytic converter. So now we used to do just large vehicles and boats at sea and large ships and stuff like that and heavy machinery. But now we can put it on your regular vehicle. Between the prices going up, the carbon taxes, and the efficiencies and the cost of our units going down, we've hit this watershed, this tipping point, this supernova. Having interviews where they're going, oh my God, this is so refreshing. How come nobody saw this coming? You have transitional solutions. You have something that'll go in a car in 2 hours with no modifications that'll drastically reduce the amount of fuel and emissions. Yes, right now. You decentralize power. 50% of your electricity or your fuel is transport and storage and refining if you're looking at fuels. So the next part is synthetic fuels. All the big oil companies are doing synthetic fuels. Synthetic fuels is taking hydrogen out of the water, carbon out of the air, which is electrolysis for both those processes. So there's 2 times electrolysis. Then you have to recombine it with electricity, electrolysis again. It's electrolysis times 3. What you're going to find is you're going to have synthetic fuels at all the pumps because they'll have a bigger margin, less costs. It's completely carbon neutral because you take carbon out of the air and you're re-emitting it. And that's a really good start. So to answer your question earlier, something the size of 3 feet by 3 feet cubed will run a Western society house, like a 3,500 square foot house with everything. You could run an arc welder, you can have a pool, you can have air conditioning, whatever you want. Real simple.
Well, that's what I want. That is what I want. And if you have one, I'm going to buy it, test it, have people come by and test it, feature it in the videos, talk about it. And I have another person who does an electric Preparedness magnetic motor. How can we get these devices? Because the time has come. It's past the time. We need them now. Truly need them.
Yep.
Grid's starting to fracture. We need that stuff. So how do I get my hands on one would be the question. And how readily available are you? Are really talking 3 to 6 week lead time on one of these for a home gen set? Or is it they're still under development and it's still prototype model? Because you're pretty confident that putting something on a car is already ready to go at the 100% level. So where do we say with the home gen sets?
The timeline, the roadmap to set expectations. Right now, we have a commercially available product that has 50 million road miles on it that's commercially ready. right now, that's our focus. So if you've got a diesel generator and you want to put biofuel in it or reduce the amount of diesel in the emissions, we have a solution for you. So you can have electricity. So that we're doing that right now. The linear generator, that's 6 to 9 months out. And what we want to do is we actually want to license and sell off the rights or sell it out automotive industry, every type of combustion engine, whatever, planes, trains, automobiles, boats, whatever it is. And then we just want to go to Africa and be the power company. We just want to take all that money, leverage it, and to boldly go where no infrastructure's gone before, where no banking's gone before. And then, light up 1.5 billion people with this new infrastructure, with net new, with no competitors. And then the rest of the world economically will have to follow because they're economically unviable once you have 1.5 billion people using this stuff. They can't afford to compete in the world market anymore. That's the big picture. When you consolidate,
let me stop you for a second there too. Now, if you're over in Africa, they're going to need a medium of exchange. So some sort of cryptocurrencies now has the mechanism to transmit itself amongst those users in a certain nation or continent. Then, like you say, you're bringing the banking to them as well with the cryptocurrency usage on the same network that is providing the power. That's all in this same closed loop system here. Sounds really interesting. It's like you're moving a new network literally for electrical production, pollution reduction, and banking, and decentralized finance, decentralized power production, all in a single package that can be copy pasted, if I'm getting it right.
So at the end of the day, the irony is the US dollar through OPEC, backed by oil and reserves, because an army runs not on its stomach, but on its oil reserves. But if you're replacing that with hydrogen and it becomes decentralized, then there's no need for war.